This is a program about going deeper. It is about creating a culture of learning. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It is our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their region with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with a faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Eagle Mountain Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome to Eagle Mountain Radio. My name is Chris and I'll be the host today. And we've got with us Bobby.
Hey there.
As you can tell, because if you're watching this, if you're listening, you now know Bobby is here.
I am here.
It's always good to have you on this.
I'm excited for this particular show. We've got a special guest.
Is that because we're talking with Ed?
We are. Ed Rush.
We've also got Ed Rush with us.
Ed
is an amazing person. He's got a military background flying F-18s. So anybody that flies an F-18 you already know is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just automatically.
Oh, yeah.
He also, I think weren't you on the first season of...
One of my clients was on Apprentice with Donald Trump. Yeah. So
okay.
There's some stories there, but I'm not allowed to tell most of them.
That's also pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you're also you're a speaker. You consult with everybody from a startup to multi-million-dollar companies. You got a ton of experience, and you're going to be one of the speakers at this conference that we have coming up very soon called Restore Government and Economy. So there's a ton of amazing reasons to talk to you today, Ed. So we're so glad that you could spend some time with us. And the rumor that was started at the pre-show was that you live in San Diego and it's really warm there right now.
That's the rumor. Yeah. So at some point here in San Diego, it moves through 72. Sometimes it's going up, sometimes it's going down, but it's really, really challenging. And we're in the pre-show, we were talking about, I'm coming up to Bend for this event, right? Next week to speak it in your beautiful city. And you're like checking the weather. And I'm like, I hope it rains. I hope it snows. Because we don't get much of that down here. So I'm a wet weather guy.
I'm not sure if it will, but it is more likely than you are for that to happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, in San Diego, it'll sprinkle and everyone will just start driving into each other on the highways. That's how unfamiliar San Diegans. I grew up in Philly, where snow and the roads are pretty awful. So I'm used to, maneuvering around people. But here in San Diego, it's not a wet weather city. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. We're not going to hold it against them. No, we very much appreciate you taking some time to spend with us today. And I'd love to just hear, maybe we don't give everything away, but maybe just a sneak peek, high level. What is your talk going to be on at this event that's coming up?
Wait, so I'm supposed to know ahead of time what I'm going to be talking about next week? Like, maybe the night before over dinner.
Right.
I'm just kidding. I'll give you some ideas. So a couple things. First thing you should know about me, even though I did fly F-18s, as you said so eloquently in the introduction, I also failed kindergarten. And I don't like, admitting that fact in public, certainly not on a show like this, which goes out to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But I always tell that story because, life wasn't always easy and I had to learn kind of the hard way. In fact, my daughter recently graduated from kindergarten. I don't know if you're familiar with the syllabus, but it's, stacking blocks, not eating the glue. It's not difficult, right? And so I learned early on that I was going to have to find a different way to be successful. And really part of my strategy was to find people who I considered successes. And I did what they did and I didn't do what they didn't do. And then I looked at people that I considered unsuccessful and I didn't do what they did and I did what they didn't do. And it's crazy how simple that is. I've been teaching that now for 10 years at my events. It's one of the most simple principles you could ever teach. And it's based on the principle that the majority is always wrong. You've been told like a million times, right? The majority is always right. Well, I can tell you, in fact, it's interesting. Just on your last show, I was listening to your show and Johnny was saying, anytime the media and everyone is saying the same thing, you can almost rest assured that it's wrong, right? So let's take the majority. The majority of people don't have the kind of relationships they want. The majority of people don't have the kind of money that they want. The majority of the people don't have the kind of fitness or the health or the vitality that they want. The majority of business owners don't have the kind of business that they want. And so I've always looked to the opposite, to look to those like 1%, that 0.1%, and really try to find success there. So at the event, I'm going to be sharing with you what I consider is God's mission for our world right now, which is, I'm just going to say it this way, and you can plug in the gap how you want to in your specific area or mountain. but it is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is solving problems, right? And we're in a world now where essentially everyone is turning into an entrepreneur. You know, in the Industrial Revolution, everyone turned into a worker, and now it's like everybody's turning into an entrepreneur. People have their own show or podcast or message or vision or book they want to write. Even someone who's working in a corporation, a lot of people have this mission that God has put them on, and God has a specific mission for you. And here's the thing: when you accomplish your mission, it makes it so much easier for all of the rest of us to accomplish our mission. And the truth is, our world is in a difficult place right now. We've had a very difficult 2 years. You could argue that we've had a very difficult 10 or 20 years. And just full transparency, it's not getting a lot better either. And part of the reason for that is because we have bad leaders, we have bad corporate leaders, we have bad people in authority positions across the world. And it's my fundamental viewpoint that God wants to put God wants to put people, his kids, in those positions, and all you need to do is say yes, get a little training, and get into it. And so my vision is to help people, especially in the business world, but also in the government sphere, help people find and accomplish their mission. That's discovering the mission, being trained properly from the mission, and then flat out executing, no matter what happens, no matter what cancel culture says about you, no matter what challenges come your way, to be able to do that. And in my short spot next week, I've got 40 minutes to just go for it. I think actually I'm the opening speaker. Actually, after you guys welcome everybody, I'm like, throw me to the wolves, throw me the lions den. But by the way, if you're coming to the event, don't you come late. I'm serious. You're gonna miss. There's the first 5 minutes of my talk. You will hear something you have never heard ever in your life, and you will remember it for the rest of your life. And that's a bold promise, but. So there.
So absolutely 100% do not be late.
Right.
I can.
Yeah. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I showed up for something 10 minutes early, and the gunnery sergeant looked at me. He just called me Rush. That's what Rush. The gunnery sergeant looked at me and he said, Rush, if you're 10 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. Okay. So there's the rule. If you're 10 minutes early, you're 5 minutes. So show up early. I'll be there early. Okay. Bobby and Chris we'll all be there early.
We're all going to be there
early. You can do a little workout before me, some push-ups, something, pound some coffee, and then we'll make it happen.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a lot of reasons. You got parking. You got to get your coffee. We got
there we go.
Amazing cafe. Like there's a lot of reasons.
Oh, absolutely.
But the most important reason is if Ed is saying there is something that you will remember the rest of your life that you've never heard before, and that's in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. First 5 minutes.
You better be there.
Right. And the breaker always sets the tone for the conference. So
That's
it's not just by happenstance.
There's a word. I'm going to just say this. There is a word at the end of, so the event goes Friday, Saturday. At the end of Saturday, Bobby, Chris, I can tell you, you're going to come up to me and go, they've been using this word the whole event. Okay. And I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a little Marine Corps thing. I'm just going to bring on Friday.
Come
okay.
on.
So that's
Nice.
all I have to say about that. And by the way, if you're listening to this after the event, you know what? Just go find a way to get to the recordings or whatever they have available.
Yes.
Because it's going to be fun. So
Yes, if you're listening to this 10 years from now, the event was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And you need to go buy the replay because it's still available.
That's how prophetic we are, though, right? We create the future. I mean, so that's what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's funny.
So Ed, you said something. You said a bunch of things that I was trying to write them all down. I'm already in note-taking mode, so that's a good sign. You said when you accomplish your mission, you're helping others to accomplish their mission, and it's so obvious when you said it. Like that, it's like, well, no, duh. Like we've all got a part to play. That makes perfect sense. But it's in that simplicity of that is so profound, and I think it is very often missed. People. I feel like a lot of times kind of hear this message from the enemy. It's definitely from the enemy. Hey, it's not like what you're doing matters that much.
Yeah.
But the thing is that all of the pieces have to be working together. It takes all 8 cylinders firing at the same time to make the engine run well. Can you speak into that a little bit more?
Really good. Really, really good. So I'm going to take you back just a little bit. Before I do that, let me just tell you, if you're listening, I talk fast, okay? So speed is my thing. And so if I talk fast, you just have to listen faster. That's just the rule. All right, we got a limited time to get what we want to get in. And I'm just going to try to put about 2 hours worth of stuff in about 25 minutes. So we're just going to have some fun with that. But let me just give you a little history. So I've been in business now for about 14 years. So I was in the Marine Corps, flew F-18s. I was a graduate of Top Gun, went on to be the weapons school instructor in the F-18 in the Marine Corps. I was the number one instructor for 1-against-1 dogfighting. So I had a really great career, and then I just left, like right in the middle of it. God just sort of directed me someplace else, and I ended up in business, of all places. I wasn't planning on that. That wasn't like my vision or career trajectory. I had other ideas, actually, and God just sort of like finds a way to get you to where you actually need to be. And I love business. I love business because business solves problems, and God is in the business of solving problems. And so I started coaching, teaching, mentoring, and advising entrepreneurs. I started building my own businesses, built 2 really great online businesses that I sold. I built several other businesses that exceeded 7 figures. And then I started getting brought into events to speak about how to market your business, how to grow your business, how to brand yourself properly, how to get new customers. And then I started doing my own events. And when I was doing my own events, I was very self-consciously myself about being a Christian, about the message, about connecting with God, about accomplishing your mission. And what I started doing about 8 years ago is on the third, usually do 3-day events. On the third day of my event, in the morning, my events usually go from about 9 to 5. In the morning, I said, look, I tell everybody on the second day, tomorrow morning, I'm going to do an optional session. And during this optional session, I'm going to teach you how you can ask God questions about your business and get answers. It's basically how I said that. And I said, if I do this session in the morning, how many of you would come? Just raise your hand. And I had like 150 people at an event, and like 147 people would raise their hands. And then I would do the thing in the morning, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, 147 out of 150 people were there. And these are people from all walks of life. I'm talking like atheists and Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Christians and skeptics and people who don't know what to believe, but kind of pretend to anyway. And they would show up, and I would leave them in this little session where they would literally ask 2 questions. I would just teach them, here's how you ask God a question. Here's how you write down the answer. And across the room, there would be people who were pulling out tissues and crying, and there would be people with pages and pages of notes.
Wow.
I had a woman walk up to me once. She said, Ed, I have 2 pages of notes from God, and I'm an atheist. How does that work? And I said, well, you're the atheist. You tell me how that works. What's up, Johnny? Good to see you, man. So you want to keep going on this one? And then
keep going.
Anyway,
Keep
she
going.
walks up to me with this paper. She says, I have 2 pages of notes, and I'm an atheist. How does this work? And I said, well, you're the atheist. You tell me how this works. And so what ended up happening is in the business world, not in the church. Okay, like I go to church and I participate, but it wasn't me doing it in the church environment. It was in the least likely people. There was a guy who walked up to me, and he said, I was just about to walk up on stage that same morning, and he said, Ed, I heard you praying this morning. I was wondering, I've got this back and neck problem. I was wondering if you could just pray for me and maybe ask God if that would go away. I said, look, Barry, I got to get up on stage. I got like 15 seconds, but God, we just pray. And this is not a church event. This is a business event. I said, God, we just pray that Barry's neck and back, boom, walked up on stage. He comes to me the next morning, and he said, Ed, I have no pain at all in my neck and my back. And he's, by the way, he's from Chicago. He goes like this. He goes, it's kind of weird. Honestly, it's kind of weird. That dude is still, to this very day, had no problems at all at a business event, right? And so part of the mission that I'm on is to show people in this sphere how to connect with God. Because here's the crazy thing. I don't care who the person is. God has a mission. He created you to do something amazing. Okay, now check, this is really important. He created you to do something amazing, and there's no plan B. Because plan B is someone else, and he created someone else to do something else amazing, right? So he wrote something on your heart. He gave you, it's probably something you really want to do, frankly. It's literally in your heart someplace that he gave you to do. And my mission is to help you find it, to train and equip you to accomplish it, and then to help you through the obstacles and the bumps along the way to get there. And there's the short version.
Wow.
That is good.
Love it.
That is
Okay, so here's the next question.
pumped.
Ed, we'll start with you, and then Johnny, we want you to jump in on this too. So what is next on the horizon for government, economy, and business that would make someone want to get here for this event? What's next, and
huge.
why would someone want to say, you know what, this is a new season, I need to be equipped?
Oh, that's good.
It's great. So you want me to do that one first?
Go ahead, Ed, and then we'll
Okay.
jump to
So
Johnny.
first of all, let me just say, Johnny, man, it's awesome to be here on this with you. And this question, this is great. Why I love this question, because this question, so I have a book that's sitting right in front of me. It's called The End of the World as We Know It. So I don't know if you read this book, if you're watching the show, but you need to go on Amazon and buy it. It's like only like $7. Okay. It's not an expensive book. So in the book, Johnny talks about this transitional period that we're in the world right now, right? And we are, no question, right? We're in a massive transition.
That's for sure true.
What's happening in this so it feels very bumpy, right? It's very tumultuous. What's happening is the entire world is in a hyper acceleration. Okay, so let me give you an example. The move out of office spaces and onto Zoom was already happening in 2018, 2019. In 2020, it accelerated about 10 years. So in other words, by like 2030, people were going to be doing business on Zoom and the office spaces would be largely empty, like most of my client office spaces. So it would have taken about 10 years to get there, but it happened in about 2 months in 2020 because of a hyper acceleration, okay? And you could literally go industry to industry to industry and show how there's hyper accelerations happening. Now, simultaneous to this, what's happening is God is reshuffling the deck, okay? And the old ways of doing things and the old structures, I'll just say it this way, structures of authority are going away, and God's looking at his kids and he's saying, okay, now this is your mission. You've got this, you've got government, you've got the Senate, you've got Congress, you've got the White House, you've got the Supreme Court. I need you, local government. I need you over here in the state capitol in California, in Sacramento, right? So God's moving this and what's happening is he's creating possibilities where they weren't there before, right? So it used to be like you had to work your way through the system and you had to do it the normal way. I'll make this story quick, and then I'll pass it over to you, Johnny. When David went to fight Goliath, right? You all know the story. David's like, who's this guy? Like, I'll take him. The first thing everyone said was, here's why you can't do this. Like, you can't, you're too small, he's too big. And so what's happening in the world today is people, you're being called, God's like, I want you to go to government in Sacramento, and I want you to go to government in Illinois, and I want you to build this business and make millions of dollars and help a lot of people and create a lot of jobs. And I want you to go and be an art, and I want you to be the best artist here so that you can draw people's attention to me. And what's happening is the first thing is the world and the enemy is coming in and saying, here's why you can't do it. You're too small, you're too weak, you're nobody. Okay, it's the way of thinking. The second thing they said to David was, okay, fine, if you're going to go, take this armor and do it this way. So the second thing that people are saying is, fine, if you're going to do it our way. In other words, do it the world's way, right? So let's say you want to be in government. Here's what you need to do. You need to campaign the way everybody normally campaigns, which is basically being awful to people, and saying horrible things. But God's way is very different than our way. God's way is very easy. It's very light. And part of what's happening right now is those structures are beginning to change. And people like you who are watching this right now are catching a vision for something that's possible. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not exaggerating. Within 40 years, I expect us to be dominant in every single sphere of culture: government, arts, media, literature, books. I'm talking about like Amazon cover to cover should have books from people who love God. Okay, people should be connected to God, breaking through their barriers. The world should be a different place, and the reason it's not is because we're not there. Okay, so you want to complain, you got to look right in the mirror first and be like, hey, first thing I'm going to do is take responsibility for me not being where I need to be, and then I'm going to get there. All right. So that was a little longer than I was planning.
No, that's great. That's what solutionaries do, though, isn't it?
That's so good.
Yeah, that is the revolution. That's the revolution. That is it right there. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Johnny, jump in on this.
Yeah, that's so good. And sorry, guys, my time zone thing showed up 4:30 instead of 3:30. But that's good stuff, Ed. Good seeing you via this means, and we look forward to seeing you next
week, baby. Yeah,
and that will be wonderful, and very good stuff you're sharing here. And there's a couple of things. One is that there's the intervention of the kingdom into our workplace that's kind of always been available. Things that I was quickly hearing Ed talk about, like just that God heals and He can give solutions and just whatever invitation to do something, and our prayer does that and activates it, releases it, and so people can get healed, people can get solutions for their business. And so that's a part that we're awakening to in measure, and it's we've been hearing some stories over the last several years, and it's progressive, and it's happening more and more. People are aware, and so that's we'll say a recent constant. What is absolutely brand new, it goes into the book Ed's talking about, the end of the world as we know it. We are going into the end of the world as we know it. And so it's specifically affecting the economy and government, perhaps above every other mountain, but it will have a tsunami ripple effect in every mountain. And that's where we're going. It connects to, and I was reminded as I started speaking here, a vision the Lord gave me a few years ago, where he showed me the 7 mountains, and he really, with his left hand, he was removing everything that was at the top of all 7 mountains. And so I mean, it was obvious to me what I was seeing, but I said, Lord, what are you showing me? He says, I'm removing the mafia from the 7 mountains. He says, I see you coming, and there's not many of you. You're like Gideon's 300, but there's enough of you. And as you're approaching the place of high influence, you're being knocked out by the mafia. I see it. And he said, I could have done this for you long time ago, but you weren't, as the body of Christ, you were going to really not take advantage of the situation. You're going to stay in church singing, I'll fly away, oh glory, and not take advantage of the opportunity I was giving you. And so 7 times worse were coming in. So he's removing this mafia, and we don't have to go in depth. Well, I'll just call it the NWO, the New World Order Mafia, that's been ruling government and economics. And there is an entirely new governmental structure for the world that is, I mean, even as we speak, it's taking place. Mm-hmm. And if you really knew what was going on and you could ignore what mainstream media was saying, you could at least have a better idea. But it will be clear enough soon enough what God is doing at the governmental level. And there is a removal of a mafia that has ruled in 99%, if not 100% of the nations of the world. And so that's a massive deal. That's a major deal. That's to add on top of how we knew we could splice them in already, even under those circumstances. Same thing with the economy. There is a whole new world economic system coming in, and there is a displacement. It's the kingdom of God that comes in, like it says in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 26, that he comes in and it shakes everything, and his kingdom is pressing in. It removes those things that are there. So there's a displacement factor. The kingdom is coming in. That's the new era. It's the era of the kingdom. That's what I was writing about in that book. And this kingdom, as it comes in, it's not just a landing. Oh, look at the landing. Cool, coming in the shuttle. It's displacing. And as it displaces, it is the earthquake scenario we're feeling worldwide right now. And so it's going to give us, to go to your original question there, Bobby, why is it important? Why is it important, even this Rise Summit that we're having? It's important because we're right at this marker in history where the Lord is doing this major sovereign move of his, of allowing his kingdom, as it says. Furthermore, you read, I was telling you, Hebrews 12, 26, 27, 28. So we are receiving a kingdom. So we're receiving the kingdom. We're learning how to receive the kingdom, but it's displacing things. And so in this massive transition, it's good to be hearing from practitioners such as Ed, who are already on either one or both of those mountains, receiving God as they can, and begin to get an idea of how this thing is going to be accelerated as we see this unprecedented new landscape positioned really for the sons and daughters of the King to be the carriers of light for the world.
Wow. That's
good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Love that.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about these things, both of you guys are making these points that are kind of bringing to light this theme that we've been digging into a little bit over the past few episodes, but that's really this theme of there's kind of these 2 modes, right? There's this one mode of just step back and I don't have an ability to do anything, so I might as well just kind of, eliminate as much damage as possible and just kind of hunker down. And then there's this other kind of thinking, which is kind of what you guys are talking about, which is, no, everyone has a role to play, and you don't have to be president of the United States or governor of your state or CEO of a Fortune 10 company to have a role. Everyone has a role. And Ed, you were so beautifully talking about that earlier, but really there's this call. What I feel like all of these events that we've had, and this one is no different, this one may be even more important, there's this call for people to step into what God already designed them for. So it's not really something new from the standpoint of different than how God made them, but for many people it will be brand new because they haven't actually been doing the thing that God designed them for. Let's go back to you, Ed, and then I'd love to hear from Johnny. Can you speak to that?
It's awesome. It's such a cool question. So it's interesting. The two categories you just mentioned, I mentioned end of the world as we know it. And Johnny, you mentioned, you talk about this in the book, the two settings. One setting is sort of like, well, we'll just kind of wait for the rapture and like whatever happens is what happens. And the other setting is like, you just go after it, but there's no partnership with God, right? So I just did an event last week, just this cool event. I did this event in Dallas. It was called God Talks. And the promise of the event was how to ask God questions about your business and get answers, similar to the content that I'm going to be teaching at the Rise event up in Bend. And at the end of the event, we gave applause to God because for 2 days, God showed up and spoke to the attendees of my, and everyone had things that they had written down from God. These are people from all walks of life and all kinds of businesses and everything. And at the end, I said, we're gonna give a round of applause to my team. And they said, well, we want to clap for you. I said, that's fine. You can clap for me if you want. And then we're going to end the event by giving a round of applause to God. And I said, it would be, people come up to me and say, wow, that was such a great event. And I used to say, well, that was just all God. But see, that's not fair to say that and God wouldn't say that either, because I was standing there speaking and teaching, and God was there teaching and connecting with people. And so what I told people is, I said, when you're really walking in what God has called you to do, it is a partnership. You are partners. Like you show up and God showed up. Like I showed up dressed. I had my notes. I taught people, here's how your brain works. Here's how your mind works. Here's how you can recode your brain so that you can achieve the success you want. Here's how you ask God questions about your business, about your life and your past and money. And here's how to, I'm teaching that. God had given me the things to teach. I know where those things came from, but still, I showed up prepared and I did that. But then there was a moment in my event where I said, all right, now we're just going to turn the music on and I'm just going to invite God to come and speak to you. And I didn't say a thing. I went backstage. And for 10 minutes, man, people are sitting there writing things down and God showed up, right? Yeah. Wow. So a true entrepreneur, a true world changer is a person who understands that you show up, God shows up. You partner together, right? So like David, tell that story again. David had to walk his butt out on that field of battle with a couple rocks and a sling. He needed to do that. He needed to have some training on how to sling that thing accurately. All those things came into alignment, but God in a really big way showed up that day too. And so that's that partnership, right? And we talk about acceleration. It's fascinating. So I was praying one day, it was about 8 years ago, sitting in this little chair praying to God. And I was talking to him about the concept of time. You all know this. I'm not going to go into a big Greek lesson, but Chronos time in Greek is like the clock time, and Kairos time is on time. Kairos isn't so much according to the thing starts at 1:30. It's whenever God says it's time, it's time. And I was reading through the story of in Exodus when the people of God were supposed to head into the promised land. They made a whole bunch of mistakes, and God's like, it's going to take a while now. And I said, I was journaling and I was asking God, I said, okay, so Kairos on time can be slowed down apparently. You can delay it because of your decisions or because of your inaction or whatever it is. But then I asked God, I'm like, wait a second, if it can be slowed down, can it be sped up? In other words, okay, so our decisions and our lack of partnering with God can slow down what he's bringing to the world and to us. But think about this, can we speed it up? Yeah, actually, if it works one way, it works the other way, right? So what we're seeing right now, which is crazy, we're seeing the answer to literally hundreds of years of prayer, right? And by the way, a lot recently. I'm talking stadiums of people on their face praying that God would restore. So what's happening now, this is so fun to think about. Instead of it doing the delay, right? Instead of the other way, God's speeding things up, moving people into place that maybe needed 20 years to train, and God's like, nah, it's time now. Wow. So it's fun when you think about it, being in this moment in time, hundreds of years of people praying for this moment that we get to reap the benefit of. So it's a blast, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
great.
That's amazing.
Johnny, you talk about government and economy. And one of the things that you said about that is everyone is a part of that mountain, because everyone has heaven's government to some degree falling on them in this new era, and also heaven's resources and economy. So for the mindset that says, man, I'm not in government, I don't hold a seat there, or I'm not in, I'm not an economist or a business guy like Ed. What do we say to those people who need to get heaven's mindset regarding what God's doing in government and economy right now?
Well, and it's not that everybody's on that mountain, but everybody for sure is affected by that mountain. You may argue it some on the other ones, but there's a certain way that's why they're the 7 mountains, the 7 chief, pillars of society, is because we are affected by all of them in some way. But this one is particularly relevant right now for the very reasons I'm talking about. It's because government and the economy are going through a world overhaul. And so, and it will affect, there is no way you will not be affected by it. And then there is also the reality where we continue to look for more kingdom recruits for activation on these mountains, and particularly the mountain of government and the mountain of economy. And we find out, especially God's people, much, they prefer to lay hands on the sick in church than to be in some position, because there's a lot of government positions that really all positions in government are supposed to be service, be servant hearted, lay down your lives and represent the king in that kind of way. So it doesn't have, it doesn't have all the glory, and we just haven't been exposed to that idea anyway that we need it. So, just jumping from there, this applies to all the mountains, but especially these 2 right now, is that there's been surveys. I've seen different ones where, or heard of different ones the question is being asked to people that even go to churches, equipping churches. I know there's a particular pastor who was giving a survey they had done at a large church, and they're an equipping church. And how many of you know what your call is? And it was 87% at an equipping church, and it comes out of that it's in the 90 percentile overall in the body of Christ, that when you ask them, they're in church, they're spirit-filled, they've been saved, filled with the Holy Spirit many years, it passes 90% those that say, I don't really know what my call is. And a lot of that is, again, the existing paradigm that's been there. I often share how really only 3%, when they've done these surveys as well, only 3%, if a pastor's looking at his congregation, only 3% will actually ever serve in a ministerial position that we would call in the mountain of religion. And that's either being, pastor, youth pastor, worship leader, even missionary, evangelist. You add everything that exists, it comes to a maximum of 3%, which tells you that 97% have a primary call in one of the other 6 mountains.
Right.
So for a lack of even considering or exploring other mountains, we find that, you don't go there. My personal story as it relates to the mountain of government, I was sharing a previous conversation we had with another guest coming on. But, I have a huge favor on the mountain of government, having met with, more than 25 presidents, prime ministers, leaders of nations, and well over 1,000 congressmen, senators. And it's like every week I'm interacting, dealing with something. We have a whole organization that trains people and candidates, and it's unbelievable, all the governmental favor and doors that are there. It's crazy, and I never studied government, never went into government, never wanted to do government. The first time the Lord said, I want you to get into meet a mayor, I was like, I don't need to do that. I'd rather do like my dad's doing these things. And he's like, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And so there was this, I did not want to go there, but this is the message I wanted to get to is right here is, I feel like there's a lot of the body of Christ, they're like been a fish out of water. And you're fish out of water because you keep, again, there's this high percentage trying to find their call in the mountain of religion. And their call and assignment, or a major call and assignment, is somewhere else. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter your age. You say, well, I'm too old, I'm too young. You could be 20, you could be 80 right now. And you could have an assignment on either one of these mountains. I point out there's 4 different ways you can show up on the mountain of government. You can be the protagonist. That would be the candidate, the political candidate you think. You can be the advisor or friend to that candidate. You can be the intercessor. You can be called to intercessor for a person, hopefully primarily that, but even for the situation or whatever, for a general burden for it. And number 4, a financer. So it doesn't mean you have to think, no, I would never want to be mayor. You could be called to that mountain of government for any one of these other purposes, and it'd be very important at this time, and you'd be surprised the favor you might step into. You might be a fish in water all of a sudden. And then the last thing on it, I remember this is a year or 2 years ago that this lady came up to me at one of our meetings. It might have been that she came up to me in Bend last year. I don't know, guys. But she had been at one of my meetings where I was talking about signs and wonders that were going to be released at that moment to confirm a mountain you would call to, that someone would call to. And if I remember correctly, this lady was near 70 as well. And she got the confirmation. I said, your right hand's going to go numb right now if you have a call and anointing for government, for the mountain of economy, business. And she said her whole arm went totally numb. And she said, I know you don't have time to hear the whole testimony. She says, but I have a business that I started. What she said, the first thing she said is, Lord, I didn't know you wanted to do business with me. She says, I have never done business. I've been a mom and a housewife. She had never done business in her life. And she wanted to tell me that she had started a business. She had this little house. She had painted it all green, in fact, and that she's really prospering. And she says, every morning I walk into my business and I weep and I say, I didn't know you wanted to do business with me. Wow. So I'm saying, some of you are fish about to discover water if you allow yourself just to be exposed to the possibility, especially in light of the fact that God's clearing out a mafia. He needs a bunch of us there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so good.
That's so good.
That's really good.
That's so good. Well, we are, as we head towards the end of this podcast, I just want to make sure and touch on a couple things. First of all, if you guys have not registered, you're listening to this, you've not registered for this event, you need to do so. There are still some tickets available for in-person in Bend. Also, it's digital, so you can attend anywhere in the world, both in-person and digital, include all the replays, which is fantastic because you're going to want to watch every single speaker again and again. I guarantee you it's going to be amazing. If you've never attended one of these digitally, this is not just a camera in the back of a Zoom call. This is a very purposefully produced event that is an amazing experience for both in-person and digital. And we will have people attending from all over the world. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Ed is going to be one of our speakers. I believe, Ed, as we alluded to before, I think you are kicking the whole thing off.
Lead off,
Johnny,
baby.
What you didn't get to hear, Johnny, is Ed said, he said at the very beginning, he said, in the first 5 minutes, I'm going to tell everyone something of my talk at Restore. So get your tickets. In the first 5 minutes, I'm going to tell everybody something they've never heard before and they will never forget in their entire life. So don't be late. And I mean, with something like that, that is pretty awesome.
I love that. Yeah.
So by the way, here's the reason. If you're thinking about coming live, because here's the thing. I'm speaking. I think the first day I'm staying the whole time. Okay, I'm there. I'm in it for the same reason you are. I want to immerse myself, take notes on the breaks. I'd love to get to know you. There's going to be other speakers there as well. So look, I know maybe next week, maybe it's your wedding, something like that. I know you might have something to do. Just cancel the wedding. Get your butt to
make the right choice.
Right on, Ed.
You're going to be so much more prosperous afterwards. The honeymoon will be better. Just come to the event.
Make the right choice. I agree. Fully agree. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
Okay, yes. You guys, last question. Ed, you were talking about Kairos time, and you were talking about the acceleration or the hyper acceleration and this divine acceleration that's happening right now, and that you can, if things can slow down, then things can speed up.
Right.
And it reminded me of the story of Mary saying to Jesus when he said, "It's not my time yet." And all of a sudden a miracle happened. It reminded me of the story where David built a tabernacle with no veil way ahead of time, even under the law, where every man could see the glory. So let's talk about that divine acceleration, sort of bringing tomorrow into today. Yeah. How important is that? We'll start with you, Ed, and then end with Johnny. How important is it to bring tomorrow into today?
Really good. I'm going to do a nice short answer, a couple minutes. because I want to give Johnny as much time as I can, because I love listening to you, brother. Thank you for your time today. I'll just put it this way. Jesus said, my time hasn't come. And he said that a lot. In fact, for about 3 years, he said, my time hasn't come. And then all of a sudden, he said that my time has come. And he is on his way to Jerusalem. Like, if you read what the Gospels say, he was walking so fast that they could barely keep up with him. He was on his mission to go eventually down a cross and rise again, as you know. And so one of the fundamental truths about Jesus was he understood his mission. He knew when the time was right, and he knew when the time was wrong, and he was a person who was on mission. About 3 years ago, I was giving a talk, and usually before my talks, either the night before in the hotel room or the day before, I'll just sit there and ask God, what do you want me to say to the folks that I'm talking to? And usually I have my outline already ready to go, but usually he has something specific he wants me to say to the group. And he said, I want you to tell them they haven't missed out. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, I wrote it down. You haven't missed out. And he said, I want you to tell them they're not too late. I said, all right, cool. I'm going to write down, you haven't missed out. You're not too late. I walk into this room. I kid you not. It's about 100 people. And about 97 of the 100 people were over age 70. It was a group of men, all over 70. I thought, oh, isn't that great what God said? So I'm in the middle of my talk. I'm doing my thing. And I said, by the way, I was talking to God yesterday, and he said to me two things. Number one, you haven't missed out. Number two, it's not too late. Both of those things are lies. Don't believe lies. Only understand what's true. And what's true is that God has put you on planet Earth for a reason, and you still have that purpose right now. And I got to tell you, man, those guys, of all the things I said, that was the thing that they were talking about afterwards. Dudes got together and started like putting ventures together. I started talking to people about businesses that they were going to do in their 70s. And the thing that I would just like to encourage you with is this. The reason why our world isn't the way we want it to be is because the people of God were called by God and equipped by God to go someplace that somehow they didn't get there because of some lie. Maybe it was a mistake you made. Maybe it was you think you're too late. Maybe you don't think that, like Saul said, he was small in his own eyes. Maybe it's some disqualifying thought that you had about yourself. And just understand, it doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter who you think you are. If God called you, he'll equip you and he'll put you exactly where you need to be in this kind of success that you need to be. And you might find yourself in some pretty crazy places. Like Johnny said, like, I didn't plan on talking to 1,000 different congressmen and women and stuff like that. Next thing you know, God's going to put you in place of influence, not necessarily because, of some skill set, but because God called you and put you there. And if he wants to put you there, he can put you there. So get rid of the idea that you've disqualified yourself or you did something wrong, or, like we have all done something wrong, and just understand that if God wants you there, he wants you there, and it's going to be awesome. So come next week and I'll talk to you guys there.
Awesome. Love it.
Good.
That was a short version of that one.
Good.
I just want to hear from you, man. Johnny.
That's so good. That's good, Ed. Well, yeah, the Lord accelerating things is one of his favorite things to do. And he does that often right after having us have been patient beyond measure. There's one of the awesome things about the Lord, and the things that I hate the most about the Lord is he's so patient. There's that time, the Lord is so patient and kind. It's like, he's so patient. And there's this cleanup process that he's doing worldwide. Even this removal of the mafia is like, oh my God, the tedious patience you have to do this. And we can go through all these biblical characters, whether it's Abraham, getting a ton of promises at 75, and then at 99, he's really just getting started on, it's going to be his children as the stars, and he's just getting his first star about 25 years later or so. Right. And he hasn't got anything going on. So but then it's just kicks off. And then there's David, who really, it's a while. It's a many years before he's really in that position of king. And then all of a sudden it takes off. And I think we're in this timetable right now that, there is going to be amazing accelerations, because we're at the end of this. Again, there's the macro, there's this patience God has had in order for there to be reveal root structure systems that need to be dealt with. And then all of a sudden there's a different button that's pushed. And it's a little bit like that. I was thinking there were a couple of movies, is Mel Gibson's, what's that, Braveheart. Yeah. There is hold. There's holding a long time. The enemy's there and you're here. And then there's now or charge. And that kind of scene is repeated in different war scenes as well. But we feel like the Lord's had us in a hold. Again, this is not really personalizing it, but there is an application personal as well. But there is kind of in the body of Christ. There's been a lot of last 2 years. Hold, don't lose ground. Hold the line. Hold what I'm telling you. Don't lose ground. Hold. You're like, how long are we going to have to do this? How long? And then we can feel the charge coming, and we want to be ready. We want to be ready to do that. When he opens those doors, you want to be able to run. We want to be able to run with him, run with the horses, as he says. And so it's an exciting time, and I think we're going to see a lot of acceleration coming.
All of those watching, man, let that be an encouragement to you. That is amazing. For Jesus, he prepared 30 years for a 3-year ministry. For Daniel, all the end time scenario, he didn't get started till he was 68. And so there's just some divine acceleration that I know for those watching, you're being encouraged right now. This is a time for you. The curtain's not closing, it's opening up on this end time scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easy to use, well, I mean, I'm just too old now, or I'm not good at that, or I wasn't called to that. But I really like the way you said that some people are going to find that they're a fish in water that they didn't know. And they're just going to they're going to all of a sudden hit the thing that God made them for all along. And it's just going to be incredible. And I really feel like both you guys touched on this concept of acceleration. I mean, I think we've been feeling this for a while, and it causes a bit of anxiety, but I feel like just collectively, the more people I talk to, the more I feel like the momentum of this giant flywheel is starting to turn. And pretty soon, there will be so much momentum you won't be able to stop it. So it's very exciting times. You guys, if you want more information, we'll put Ed's website in the show notes as well, so you can click on it there. If you have not registered for this event that is coming up, Restore Government and Economy, you absolutely need to do that. You can find information about that at restore7.org. So go there and reserve your ticket. There still are some in-person tickets for Bend, Oregon. So if you have a way to get here, you're not going to want to miss that.
That's right.
If you are anywhere else and cannot attend in person, definitely don't just skip this. Get the digital access. It is going to be an amazing experience digitally. It's very interactive. There's tons of ways to connect to other believers and learn a lot of things. Plus, everybody gets replay access. Super, super important. We're very excited about it. Johnny's got something. He's itching. He's got something. What have you got?
Well, I just feel the Lord on this thing of, you mentioned, I think it was said a couple of times, doesn't matter your age, how old you are, but I'm hearing the Lord really call those who think they're old. And you mentioned, Moses was not the fish in water until he was 80. He was a fish out of water until he was 80.
Wow.
And Joshua and Caleb were fish out of water till they're 80. They did not cross the Jordan until they're 80. And so nothing really worked for them before then. And then when Caleb's 85, he's like, I'm as strong now as I was when I was 40. And he's like, give me my mountain. He was ready for more. But I think really specifically, the Lord wants to speak to those literally in that age group. And you can be more than that too. Because you can be rejuvenated by a vision of a promised land that the Lord has for you if you step out of trying to, you're coached through doctrine often to count on the Lord returning as soon as possible. So you actually you turn down your engines of what you still have left when it could be more your most valuable years coming up. And the Lord just wants you not to think that way and to prepare yourself in an entirely different way. And I really think the trend in spiritual circles in churches, like, we got to get the youth. Yeah, we want the youth too. But let's not start throwing away the Joshua and Caleb's. Joshua and Caleb, people forget. They were the two oldest people. They were the two oldest men in all of Israel. You follow the story. It's absolutely the truth. The two oldest men were Joshua and Caleb.
That's right.
So you want to be a Joshua and Caleb? Okay. We want the youth as well. So come on as well. But I just think there's so much value and so much inheritance still available for that crowd.
That is so good. Instead
of just passing on your mantle, which is what we're doing, and instead of just thinking about, all right, the younger generation, the older generation should be shouting, catch me if you can.
Come on.
That's right. 850 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Come on. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Ed, thank you for pouring into this. We're so excited to see you coming up at this event. It's going to be awesome to see you in person. Johnny, you as well. Thank you for just pouring in. We're very excited. Again, if you're hearing this and you haven't registered, you got a to-do list. Go register right now. Go to restore7.org and register. Also, we'll put Ed's website in the show notes. You want to check that out as well. And we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.
Take care. Guys, thanks.